They never told you the truth behind your lack. They told you to wait, to fast, to be content. They said wealth would be dangerous, that too much would distract you from God, that poverty was spiritual and riches were suspicious. But they never told you about Deuteronomy 8:18. They never told you God didn't just promise to bless you, He gave you power to produce. They never said the silence over your finances was not proof of disobedience, but of disconnection, not from God's love, but from His covenant. And they certainly never said that wealth, real, tangible, generational wealth, was not a reward, but a responsibility, not a gift, but a code, not a mystery, but a memory, and you were never supposed to forget, but you did. That's why you've been stuck between tithes and tears, hoping that one day, maybe, the breakthrough would finally come. But you're not here by chance. You're reading this because something inside you never fully agreed with the doctrine of lack. Something rebelled, quietly, secretly, spiritually, because deep in your soul, you knew this wasn't the whole gospel. So read this till the end. Don't skim, don't scroll, because Deuteronomy 8:18 isn't a verse, it's your verdict, your financial prophecy. And once it's awakened, you won't pray the same, you won't give the same, you won't live the same. Type in the comments right now, I remember, because that's how the code begins. But you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to create wealth. They never explained what that meant. They turned it into a metaphor. But the Hebrew word for power is coach. It means force, strength, ability, capacity, anointing to generate, not receive, generate, not wait, build. This was never about God dropping blessings from heaven. It was always about Him awakening your hands to multiply. You were not created to beg for provision. You were born to architect abundance. And the moment you forgot that, your spirit stopped building and started surviving. Look around, how many believers do you know that pray for harvest, but never plant? That tithe in fear, not in covenant confidence, that call it God's will when the rent is due and the miracle doesn't come. You are not crazy for feeling something is off. You're not rebellious for asking where the overflow is. You're not greedy for wanting financial peace. You are simply waking up to what they never taught. God's economy runs on remembrance, and remembrance reactivates authority, and authority births abundance. Do you know what happens when a son forgets who his father is? He works like a slave. That's what happened to you. That's what happened to many. You kept working, hustling, praying, fasting, grinding, hoping heaven would break open. But the sky didn't move because God was waiting for memory, not noise, not activity, not performance. He was waiting for you to remember, not a sermon, a covenant, not a formula, a foundation. And now He's stirring that memory in you again. That verse isn't poetic fluff, it's a legal activation. You were given the power to create wealth, which means you can build what you haven't seen. You can draw from wells you didn't dig. You can step into lands you didn't purchase. Why? Because you carry covenant access, and if you don't walk in it, someone else will spend what was meant for your bloodline. That's not fear, that's urgency. You've shouted Jehovah Jireh your whole life, but you never understood. He doesn't drop coins, He gives blueprints. He funds builders, not beggars. He empowers creators, not collectors. And if your prayers have gone unanswered, it might be because you've been asking for money when you should have been asking for wisdom, for strategy, for ideas, for instructions. You asked for the check. He wanted to give you the channel, but that requires a covenant shift. It requires you to stop seeing yourself as someone who is waiting on God. You're not waiting. You're already wired. You're already licensed. You're already activated. The power is already yours. Deuteronomy 8:18 wasn't written for pastors. It wasn't written for entrepreneurs. It wasn't written for influencers. It was written for anyone willing to remember the Lord their God and stop acting like heaven is broke. That's why the enemy let you shout, let you dance, let you tithe. But he panicked the moment you read this verse, because a remembered covenant is a dangerous thing. A believer who walks in power is a threat, not just to hell, but to generational patterns of lack. You weren't supposed to live paycheck to paycheck. You weren't supposed to die with dreams unbuilt. You weren't supposed to tithe with trembling hands. You were supposed to be the lender, not the borrower, the head, not the tail. And it wasn't just a motivational speech, it was a covenant outline. But a covenant can't work without memory. And that's why God's instruction wasn't work harder or pray louder. It was remember. And maybe this is the first time in your entire spiritual life that someone told you, you have a right to wealth, not because of greed, but because of grace. Not because you deserve it, but because you inherited it. So here's what I want you to do. Whisper this out loud right now, wherever you are. I remember the Lord my God. He gives me power to create wealth. Say it again. Let your body feel it. Let your fear tremble. Let your past lose grip. Whisper it again and again until the spirit of survival breaks off your thinking, until the begging mindset dissolves, until the false humility dies, until what's been sleeping in you starts breathing again. Because if you can remember, you can access. If you can access, you can build. And if you can build, you can bless. This is the moment you stop apologizing for dreaming. Stop explaining why you want more. Stop shrinking your vision to match their fear. You are a covenant carrier, a vault opener, a wealth architect, and it begins with this. I remember. You were never meant to manage lack with spiritual language. You were meant to dismantle it with remembered power. The reason you're still here, after everything that should have broken you, is because something inside you refused to die poor, not just in money, in vision, in voice, in legacy. Something inside you kept searching for the code, and now it's surfacing, because covenant doesn't disappear when you're broke. It just goes dormant, like a seed under snow, quiet, hidden, waiting for the thaw. And this is your thawing season. This is the moment your buried inheritance starts pushing through the frost of false teaching, fear, and religious shame. This is where remembrance becomes resurrection. Because when God said in Deuteronomy 8:18 that He gives you power to create wealth, He wasn't just referring to income, He was releasing identity. You are not a receiver, you are a creator, a multiplier, a distributor, and you don't need permission to become what He already empowered. You've been taught to be faithful with little, but no one told you that faithfulness was supposed to open gates, not chains. You've been praised for living on the edge, surviving, stretching, making it through, but survival was never the point. They clapped when you tithed in pain, but no one showed you how to tithe in power, in command, in covenant clarity. Because when a child of Deuteronomy 8:18 gives, it's not a gamble, it's a governmental act. A declaration, a movement of kingdom economy. You are not a donor, you're a builder, and the moment you realize that, money stops being emotional, it starts being obedient. Because covenant doesn't ask, can I afford this? It asks, is this part of the blueprint? And if it is, heaven funds it, always. Look around at your life. What dreams have you shelved because you thought God was saying, wait, but really He was saying, build? What ideas have you silenced because they felt too big for your budget, but not too big for your anointing? Who convinced you that desire was carnal, but poverty was holy? Who sold you the theology of limitation and called it contentment? That's not the gospel, that's bondage in religious clothing, and you don't wear those garments anymore. You are stepping out, even now, even reading this, you feel it, the shift, the discomfort, the stretch. That's the covenant waking up inside your bones. That's Deuteronomy 8:18, turning from ink into identity. That's heaven whispering, I already gave it to you. Stop asking for what's in your DNA, because when God gives power, He doesn't take it back. It may lay unused. It may rust in fear. It may be buried under years of doubt and dogma, but it's still yours. And all it takes is one act of remembrance to spark movement. Say it again. I remember. Say it like Deuteronomy 8:18 was written with your name embedded in the letters. Say it like heaven is listening for the echo of your memory. Say it like you're standing at the gates of the promised land and God is reminding you, not to be holy, but to be dangerous. dangerous to every generational curse, to every inherited lack, to every family lie that said, "This is just how it is for us." No, not anymore. It ends here, with you, with this memory, with this covenant. The church taught you how to sing about blessing, but they rarely taught you how to sustain it, because sustaining requires structure, and structure requires remembrance. This is where the shift happens, when you go from hoping for financial rescue to holding financial revelation. That money is not magic. It's movement, it's obedience, it's memory turned into momentum. Deuteronomy 8:18 is not motivational, it's mechanical. It's a divine transaction. I remember. He releases. You are not locked out. You are just one decision away from producing. That's the power. That's the protocol. And if it's written, it's yours. So what dream did he give you 10 years ago? What vision have you tiptoed around, afraid to name out loud because you don't have the capital? What assignment is still pending because your mindset is still waiting? This is the confrontation your spirit has longed for. The moment where theology meets activation, where remembrance becomes resource, where you stop saying, "God, send money," and start saying, "God, show me what to build with the power you already gave me." Because if he gave you power to create wealth, the money was never the problem, the memory was. You can't unknow what you now remember. You can't unread the code. You can't go back to praying small, giving scared, thinking short term. You are not living on leftovers anymore. You're not making peace with famine. You're not blaming God for what you were authorized to overcome. This is when you pivot. You stop seeing wealth as an exception and start seeing it as alignment. Alignment with Deuteronomy 8:18. Alignment with the God who gives power to produce, not pity to survive. And what he gives, he expects to multiply. Do you understand what that means? It means the silence over your finances wasn't a punishment. It was a pause. A pause until you were ready to receive the blueprint. A pause until your identity caught up with your inheritance. A pause until you stopped crying over manna and started moving toward multiplication. The wilderness taught you dependency, but the covenant teaches you dominion. And there is a massive difference between the two. One waits for rain, the other digs wells. One waits for open doors, the other builds gates. One hopes, the other executes. You are the latter. You are a Deuteronomy 8:18 believer. You don't wait, you produce. And now I need you to do something simple but supernatural. Come at this right now. Even if your hands shake, I receive the power to produce. Say it again. Don't type it like a nice phrase. Type it like you're breaking the code open, like you're unlocking the vault of everything you thought was out of reach, like you're rejecting every voice that made you feel guilty for wanting more than survival, like you're drawing a line in the soil and stepping across it. This is not about money, this is about mandate. And your mandate was never to maintain, it was to multiply. You were born to carry what others were afraid to touch, born to fund what others only dreamed of, born to break ceilings and set precedents, not because you're better, but because you remembered. And remembrance is the most prophetic act of all, because when you remember, you resurrect the plan, and when the plan resurrects, wealth obeys, opportunity obeys, territory opens, strategy flows, ideas come, favor follows, provision aligns, because heaven responds to memory, not need, and your memory just came alive. Wealth is not the reward, it's the assignment. You were never called to chase it, you were called to command it, not through hustle, through dominion. And dominion begins where memory meets movement. This is where most stop. They remember the verse, they say the words, they post the declaration, but their feet never move, their hands never build, their voice never claims, because somewhere deep inside, they still think wealth belongs to someone else, to pastors, to businessmen, to those kinds of believers, but not them, not the stay-at-home mom, not the ex-felon, not the burned-out leader. But Deuteronomy 8:18 didn't come with an exception clause. It didn't say, if qualified. It didn't say, if worthy. It said, but you shall remember. For it is He who gives you power to produce wealth. That's not permission. That's authority. Authority doesn't wait for applause. It moves before results. That's why this season is about dominion, not delay. About walking like the wealth is already responding. About speaking like lack is illegal. About showing up to the assignment like heaven already wired the account. Because when God gives power, He's not testing you, He's trusting you. You are the one chosen to break the ceiling over your bloodline, the one who won't pass down poverty like an heirloom, the one who says, "It ends with me." That's dominion, and it begins in the way you think. You've heard it said, "As a man thinks, so is he." But what if the real war over your finances is happening in your thoughts, not your income? What if wealth was always meant to obey you, but couldn't find a mind strong enough to hold it? Not a budget, a vision, not a job, a strategy. Because God doesn't anoint salaries, He anoints stewards. And when He gave you power to create wealth, He wasn't just giving you ideas, He was inviting you into rulership, into governance, into prophetic management of divine resources. You are not a desperate believer hoping for a door. You are a covenant enforcer who opens gates. And what's crazy is, you don't need to be rich to walk in wealth. Because wealth doesn't start in the bank, it starts in the blueprint. Wealth isn't cash, it's capacity. It's what you carry, not what you count. That's why some of the most dangerous people in the kingdom are broke in the natural but pregnant in the spirit. Their wallet is empty but their word is full. Their account is low but their oil is thick. And all it takes is one remembrance, one Deuteronomy 8:18 moment, and the inside becomes outside, the seed becomes structure, the whisper becomes a warehouse. That's what's happening to you now. You're shifting. Even as you read this, you're moving from praying for checks to praying for blueprints, from asking for discounts to asking for dominion, from chasing jobs to creating economies. You're no longer the borrower. You're no longer trying to prove you're humble enough to handle lack. You're standing up, straight-backed, clear-eyed. You are not less spiritual because you want to own land. You are not less holy because you dream of payroll. You are not less faithful because your spirit rises when you hear words like legacy, ownership, overflow. That's not greed. That's the groaning of your assignment. So go back. Reread Deuteronomy 8:18 like it was etched into your spirit. Don't recite it, receive it. Don't memorize it, embody it. Make it your mirror. Say it like a judge reading a verdict, like a prophet unpacking a promise, like a king declaring territory. Whisper it over your pillow, write it on your mirror, text it to your future, engrave it in your business plan, tattoo it in your prayers. This is not a suggestion. It's your scripture of succession. You don't inherit wealth, you inherit the power to produce it. And anything you can produce, you can protect. Anything you can protect, you can multiply. Anything you can multiply, you can pass down. That's wealth, not what you spend, what outlives you. And now I need you to type it, right now, with reverence, with heat, with force. I walk in Deuteronomy 8:18. I produce what I used to pray for. Say it, mean it. Don't just comment for the algorithm, comment for your atmosphere. Your home needs to hear it. Your kids need to hear it. Your fear needs to hear it. Your trauma needs to hear it. Your past needs to watch you type it in bold, full volume. I walk in Deuteronomy 8:18. I produce what I used to pray for. That sentence just broke something. That sentence just rewrote something. That sentence just announced something hell was hoping you'd never remember. You see, the enemy was never afraid of your worship. He was afraid of your wealth, because worship stirs heaven, but wealth shakes earth. It funds vision, it frees captives, it buys buildings, it pays off debt, it rescues families, it unlocks time, it sends missionaries, it feeds cities. It's not about accumulation, it's about acceleration. And you are the one chosen to carry it, not later, now, because dominion delayed is destiny denied, and you've been denied long enough. This is the moment you stop identifying with lack like it's a personality trait. You are not struggling but faithful. You are faithful and fruitful. You are not doing your best. You are building what's next. You are not waiting for resources. You are remembering you are the resource, the well, the storehouse, the field, the lender, the legacy, and heaven is watching for who will believe it deep enough to act on it, speak on it, walk like it, sow like it, build like it, not later, now. You've prayed long enough. It's time to produce, not in your strength, in your covenant, not for clout, for the kingdom, not to impress, to impact, because Deuteronomy 8:18 isn't your backup plan, it's your blueprint, and the next move you make will either honor the memory or repeat the wilderness. You decide. You've waited long enough. You've prayed, fasted, served, sacrificed. You've obeyed in private, cried in silence, stayed faithful when nothing made sense. But there comes a moment in every covenant carrier's life when remembrance must become movement, when what God whispered in your spirit must become the structure of your life. That moment is now. The same God who said in Deuteronomy 8:18 that He gives power to produce wealth never intended for you to repeat the wilderness. That verse was a warning. Do not forget, do not return, do not shrink back when your hands are full, do not tone it down when the oil starts to flow. You've played small long enough to make others comfortable. You've hidden vision under obligation. You've buried blueprints under churchy guilt. But heaven never called you to blend in with broken systems. It called you to build what they said was impossible. You were never meant to just survive Egypt or walk through the Red Sea. You were meant to establish territory in Canaan. You were meant to plant, own, multiply, and leave a mark. This is not about being rich for your sake. This is about becoming the kind of person wealth can trust, the kind of person heaven can flow through. Because wealth in your hands is no longer a personal blessing, it's a prophetic tool, a sign that the covenant is alive and speaking through you. And the ones who laughed at your struggle will have to witness your stewardship. The ones who dismissed your faith will see fruit that cannot be argued. The ones who mocked your prayers will see buildings that bear your name, projects that break cycles, and decisions that shift destinies. You are not just called to speak the promise. You are called to walk it out in public. No more small moves, no more financial shame. No more shrinking your dreams to fit broken theology. You carry Deuteronomy 8:18 in your mouth, your mind, your blood, your plans. Say it now. I am the manifestation of covenant wealth. Again, louder. Let your home hear it. Let your fear hear it. Let your future know what's coming. You will no longer wait for approval to start. You will no longer delay obedience because of lack. You will no longer assume that scarcity is your portion. You know too much now. You've seen the code. You carry the power, and power is not silent. It moves, it builds, it hires, it owns, it releases, it advances. You were not given power to dream. You were given power to deliver. You were not given power to journal. You were given power to establish. And you will not apologize for what is being activated through you. This isn't ego. This isn't greed. This is obedience. Obedience to the covenant that predates your fears, your childhood, your trauma. This is a return to the reason you were born, to carry weight, to multiply oil, to establish what others only imagined. And no, you don't need more confirmation. You don't need another open door. You just need to move in what's already been spoken. That's what makes this moment holy, your willingness to walk like it's already done. This is where it begins, when the quiet believer becomes a bold builder, when the whispered promise becomes a funded plan, when the prayers of survival become strategies of expansion. Your life is not random, your ideas are not coincidences, your hunger is not rebellion, your need for more is not greed, it's covenant memory calling you forward, it's Deuteronomy 8:18 refusing to stay theoretical. It's the Spirit of God confirming again and again that what you build next is holy, that what you start now will shake something ancient, that what you steward this year will speak for decades. And yes, there will be opposition, but you're not entering the battlefield naked. You are covered in code, you are backed by remembrance, you are licensed by power, and there's nothing more dangerous than a believer who no longer needs to be convinced. You are that believer now. You are not becoming, you have become. The old you who begged for breakthrough is gone. The new you walks in rooms differently, signs contracts differently, prays differently, gives differently, thinks in decades, not days. You are not begging God to send resources. You are standing up and moving like the resources are chasing you. Because they are. Because the power to create wealth does not attract favor, it releases it. What you touch will multiply. What you bless will grow. What you speak will open. What you build will last. You will fund what they said couldn't be funded. You will start what others delayed for years. You will walk into spaces where no one expected to see someone like you. And you will sit at tables not just to be fed, but to redirect entire economies, because you don't carry lack, you carry legacy. You don't beg for scraps, you write the plan, you hire, you restructure, you send, you own. So rise now, and say it with everything inside you. I am not waiting, I am building. I don't just carry the verse, I carry the covenant. I don't just declare the promise, I deliver the result. Write it down, comment it, build from it. Let this be the day heaven marked as your public emergence, not when you finally had enough, but when you finally remembered enough to move. You are the sign, you are the proof, you are Deuteronomy 8:18 in motion. You've built in silence, you've carried it in seed form, you've remembered the covenant, you've spoken the verse, you've moved when it was scary, given when it didn't make sense, said yes when everything in you was tired, and now, you're standing at the final threshold, not just of personal breakthrough, but of generational transfer. Because covenant never ends with you. It runs through you, and what you activate now will echo far beyond your life. That's why this last stretch is not about excitement, it's about establishment. Heaven is no longer watching to see what you believe. It's watching to see what you build, because you are no longer just a recipient, you are now a steward of spiritual infrastructure. The decisions you make this year will shape what your grandchildren walk in. The words you speak over your bank account will become the language your bloodline uses to define possibility. The way you handle pressure will teach your children how to respond to divine weight. And Deuteronomy 8:18 is no longer a revelation, it's your foundation. It's the verse you don't quote anymore. You live it, you breathe it, you lead with it, you sow from it, you discipline your calendar around it, you hold yourself to the standard of it, and you carry it in silence when no one else sees the war it takes to keep remembering. Because now, your obedience is not just for you, it's for the ones who don't know they're chosen yet, it's for the ones who still think poverty is holy. It's for the ones who still serve faithfully while being crushed by invisible lack. You're walking for them now. You're building for them now. You're proving something eternal, that God was never afraid of wealth. He just wanted it in the right hands, and He found yours. You don't need another verse. You don't need a second sign. You need to move like a vault has already opened and it has your name etched on the inside, because it does. And as you move, doors will swing. Contracts will chase you, ideas will return to your spirit with urgency, not because you forced it, but because heaven always funds remembrance. And your life is now the evidence of a fulfilled covenant. You have become what others only prayed to witness. You have stepped into the ancient economy of obedience. And it's not emotion keeping you steady now, it's covenant clarity. The storms will come, but you won't shrink. You'll speak the code, you'll anchor yourself to the blueprint. You'll remember that even if you're questioned, overlooked, misunderstood, what's in you is too real to collapse. You don't carry potential anymore, you carry pattern, and that's more dangerous than talent. Because pattern births permanence, and permanence births legacy, and legacy is what wealth was made for. So today, speak this final truth like a covenantal seal. I am not surviving, I am not striving, I am not stuck, I am sent, I am trusted, I am empowered. I walk in the full memory of Deuteronomy 8:18. I don't just believe the verse, I fulfill it. I produce what heaven planned. I manage what others misused. I build what others feared. I fund what others ignored. I stand where others fell. I receive what others rejected. I multiply what others buried. I declare this not as hype, but as history. I declare this not as emotion, but as execution. I declare this not for applause, but as a legal transaction with heaven. My name is now written beside this verse. My story is now aligned with this code. My house will speak of this covenant. My children will walk in this wisdom. My grandchildren will own what I only dreamed of, and no devil, no delay, no discouragement, no dysfunction will talk me out of what God already gave me power to build. I have seen the famine, and I will steward the harvest. I have lived in limitation, and I will now fund liberation. I will not apologize for the overflow that follows obedience. I will not explain the favor that chases my bloodline. I will not dilute the glory by calling it luck. This is covenant. This is memory turns into manifestation. This is blueprint turned into buildings. This is prayer turned into payroll. This is whispered obedience turned into generational operation. And when they ask how it happened, I will not say, I worked hard. I will say, I remembered. And the remembering rewrote my name, rewrote my ceiling, rewired my hands, recalibrated my timeline, reassigned my last name from survival to structure. And this will not end with me, because what I build will last. What I speak will outlive trends. What I fund will reach nations. What I activate will break ancient cycles. And I am not the exception. I am the evidence. The evidence that Deuteronomy 8:18 was not a poetic promise, but a prophetic protocol. The evidence that wealth is not carnal when it's kingdom. That power is not prideful when it's remembered. That increase is not ego when it's aligned. And that silence no longer owns my seed. Say it now, louder than fear, deeper than trauma, clearer than doubt. I remember. Say it like angels are listening. Say it like your future depends on it. Say it like your children's homes are already being framed by it. Say it like heaven is nodding and hell is nervous. Because this is the end of lack, the end of shame, the end of begging, and the beginning of blueprint, the beginning of legacy, the beginning of dominion. And not just for you, for every generation that carries your name. You will be remembered not for what you asked for, but for what you built when you finally remembered the verse that changed everything.